It is a great joy to be in contact with you. Today's Asololi will be special because we are welcoming someone who has been in the news lately. We wanted to talk to him because if you type his name on Twitter and everywhere else, his name is in the spotlight. We welcome Mr. Nicolas Kazadi to shed some light on your concerns. It is a pleasure to see you again, Papa Nicolas. Citizens wonder how you feel when they say you have stolen, embezzled. How do you feel? It's very sad. I can't say I'm happy with it, but as long as I know I'm pure of heart and I don't blame myself for anything, I'm fine with it. I only look to God, I thank God, and I tell myself that if there are people who want to pick on me, it's because they've seen a star in me. It's been that way since I was born, and it's still that way. And so, for my part, I'm not afraid of anything. It is said that the President of the Republic is poorly surrounded, whereas we know that Mr. Nicolas Kazadi is very close to the President. What do you say to those who think that you give the President bad advice? What do you think? I can also say the same thing, because everything that happens to me is a consequence of this bad environment. I am also a victim of this bad environment. And to prove it, people thought I was going to run away and that I've taken money to keep. But here I am because I've got nothing to hide. It's true that the president has a bad entourage, and I can confirm that. But when we mention Nicolas Kazadi, people see the lamppost. You've even been nicknamed as such. But now we're not going to say it for politeness reasons. But the case of the borehole and lamppost, as we are at a TV set, please tell us about it freely. What did you embezzle? And what did you do to get your name linked to the lamppost and drillings? It's up to me to ask you this question, because until today, they only come up with accusations. When I've done press conferences, they've interrupted me, saying, we don't need that, and that I have to hand over the money for the street lamps. And so, I went all the way to the public prosecutor's office, and I said, I will be in front of the judges myself, and I will talk about what was needed to make everything clear. And it was me who had to follow the agent of the public prosecutor's office. But they refused, because my immunities haven't yet dawned. And I insisted on coming to the public prosecutor's office to say what I had to say. Then my immunities were lifted in Parliament so that the public prosecutor could hear me. But can someone who is reproaching himself of something speak as I had spoken? Would he go before the judges and say what I had to say? And that's how I behaved from start to finish. The street lamps and boreholes are two projects that were signed before I was even a minister. They were signed with other ministries in collaboration with the governor of Kinshasa, and I wasn't informed. I sign a lot of projects, Madam Journalist, and I'm even the one who made sure that the national budget went from 4 billion to 16 billion. So you have no idea of how many projects I sign, and I can't be behind the scene to control everything. In fact, Minister Yav signed the 100-day emergency program, but he was never prosecuted for it. He came to testify, and that was that. For the other Matata case, we called Kitebi because he was the one who signed, and we never prosecuted him. We followed the person who controlled where the money was supposed to go. But when it came to my turn, we only saw me. Rubota, who was in charge, is not followed. I'm the only one who went after him. I even thought he would be arrested. But apparently, it's just me, and I'm the only one they're going after. So, tell us, what do you think of the street lamps and drilling project? I found that the project had already been signed by my predecessor, Sele Alaguli, who had written to the Minister of Rural Development saying that he had already received the information from the hierarchy and that he was looking for means to pay. He was going to put together a package to make the payment. That's where he stopped, and that's where I found the process. How many boreholes and lampposts were there? No. Let's continue with the boreholes first. Okay, how many boreholes were there? There were 1,000 boreholes at the cost of $400 million. That's about $400,000 per well. These weren't just drillings, they were drilling stations, and people need to understand the difference. But since people don't want to understand, they all refuse to understand. But there were drilling stations. We install the water towers, treat the water, and distribute 1 to 3 kilometers away. That was the project. We did the same type of project with the African Development Bank, and we drilled other boreholes that cost as much as $7,000. But in comparison, I found that the $400,000 boreholes were still expensive. Rubota asked me to speed things up because the company had already imported over 300 stations. And the money had been taken out under emergency procedure? Yes, but that's not a problem. If we hadn't done it under emergency procedure, the money wouldn't have gone out. And when I wrote to ask for it to be done under emergency procedure, I also wrote to the Minister of Budget and asked him to do everything possible to regularize the situation. But I never got a reply. In the meantime, we are politicians. We had to go campaigning. And we did everything we could do to pay. But the follow-up was never done. And since then, no work has been done? Yes, the work had been done, but the number of drillings that have been declared was not accurate because we had done less than what we had planned. But why didn't we reach the exact numbers? It was because Mr. Robota hadn't given them the site where the boreholes were to be installed. That's why I'd sunk Mr. Robota. And what is the role of the IGF, the General Finance Inspectorate, in this affair? Because it is the IGF that controls all this. The IGF had a political mission because its inspector, Jules Lingeti, was promised that if he sank me, he would become minister in my place. The first thing they promised him was to become a prime minister, but that didn't work. Then he was promised the Ministry of Finance. And what encouraged him was the people who were against me. They came together and got to put this together. And since he's a control freak, everything he says he's believed to be the truth. What's more, he has contracts with several journalists. But you also have journalists on your payroll. No, if I had journalists on my payroll, Being the Minister of Finance, I would have them all. But I'm not that kind of person, because it's not a problem of money, it's a problem of ethics. I was working for the country. I did not have that spirit. I had a communication team because everyone does need a communication team. But I did not pay people to defend me or promote me because my only promotion was my work. Nobody in this country has ever been able to do what I did when I was a minister. I built the financial center and the arena. Even in the Francophonie, you've been quoted. No. In fact, the Francophonie really upset me because there was a lot of misappropriation. When you are in the mafia, you don't have any problem. But when you're not in the mafia, you have a lot of problems. And that's what happened to me. And how many street lamps have been installed? Well, there was an order for 2,500. Had they all arrived? Yes, all the street lights have arrived, and that was thanks to me. Because if I hadn't intervened, they would have spilled the money. And this was against the advice of the IGF, because the IGF had told me to give the suppliers the money, but I refused. I said that the 30% they already received was enough to start the work, and all the rest will stop as the work progresses. Can a person who receives bribes behave this way? They talked about overcharging for street lamps. But the street lamps they are talking about under the extra 4,900 per street light. The street light from Proton from the Rogi group cost 6,200. And it seems that you're also happy because you tell everyone that you speak well with the head of state and that you can make private phone calls to him. And it's even for this reason that when you wanted to travel, they couldn't stop you because you have a good relationship with the president and he protected you. No, the president never protected me. And the person who allowed me to leave was the public prosecutor at the Court of Cassation. But he had received an instruction. No, he was the one who signed the document for me to leave the country. But it was the Minister of Justice who created the psychosis by making a lot of noise in the media. So, people often say that the country is not short of money. As a former finance minister, can you confirm this theory? My father was a renowned economist, and he always told me that wealth is not the quantity of goods you have, but the way you manage the goods you have. If you manage it well, you'll be a prosperous person. And the problem we have in our country is one of management. I brought the budget from 4 billion to 16 billion. But as the budget went up, new headings were added to the point that to do a remarkable job, you really had to fight. And that's why you've even seen people sharing out directors' fees and all that. And it's all part of the squandering. Even the Senate and the National Assembly, they 2017 and 2018 allocation was 5 billion a month, but in 2022 and 2023 it's 43 billion. So it was timed almost by 10. But it seems that 80% of the national budget is used solely for the running of institutions. Can't you object to that? No, but if I oppose it, they can even kill me or shoot me. And that's what's happened to me. Because in our culture, we like to enjoy ourselves. When there is money and we have access to it, we divide it among ourselves and think about the consequences later. How do you explain the fact that during the head of state's first term in office, 53 public establishments were created during the course of the year with no budgetary provision? 53 new public establishments in 5 years. And we created 100 unlimited executives. So how do you expect us to cope? But you who meet with the president, you never told him that. Yes, we do tell him, but it's not easy. But as we all come from the same family, we have to take the time to explain this to the people. And it takes a lot of courage to help people move forward. And my mistake was that I went too quickly. But it was because I had the experience of other countries, and that's what made many people hate me. It's been said that the former Minister of Finance, Celia Laguli, didn't easily get the money out for the needs of the institutions, and that when you came along and had an easy hand, all it took was a little nothing for you to release the money. Is this true? No. In fact, I too have been criticized for not making money available. But that's because people always want money without working. They want it easy. You will notice that not a single public company in this country is making a profit, apart from CENSS-AP and CNSS. In fact, they don't even make a profit either, because it's people's money. But it seems that under the current minister, Dudu Fwamba, civil servants were paid on time, whereas this was not the case during your term of office. I will refrain my answer to that question. All I know is that when I was Minister of Finance, I didn't have arrears. I paid everyone before I left, and I left 1,000 billion Congolese francs in the accounts, and everything was fine. That's what I know. I can also tell you that today I'm a member of parliament, but I'm 2 months late. I haven't been paid for 2 months. Fortunately, we are on the right track, but we're not there yet, because there's still a mindset of getting the money out before the actual work is done, whereas the money has to be invested. Just give us 2 projects you've been able to carry out during your term of office. The money we've spent on building roads in Kinshasa. But don't ask me about the execution, because we released the money, but it's not being executed at our level. So why are you lashing out at Matata for doing the same thing? It wasn't up to him to do the follow-up. No, in Matata's case, it was different, because his problem was that he was the one who brought the project forward, and he was the one who gave the instructions. It was his initiative, but in my case, I'm being made to carry out a project that I didn't set up. In the Matata case, immunities had already been lifted, and the pre-trial investigation by the public prosecutor's office, and the case was transferred to the court. So the question of lifting immunities is no longer operative at this level. As for me, when I went to see the public prosecutor to explain myself, I was questioned, but then we realized that the procedure had not been regularized. Correspondences were sent back to the National Assembly to have my immunities lifted, which was done, and so I continued to appear before the public prosecutor's office. So, where are the places where the lampposts were installed? Go and ask the people in charge. Go and ask Governor Daniel Bumba. All I know is that there were 2,500 street lamps. We supplied 1,900 and installed them on roads. And there were still 600 to be installed on the Matadi road. On this road, we started digging to install the streetlight poles. In the meantime, Mr. Daniel Bumba became the governor. He asked the company to stop the work because the street lights were going to be installed on other roads that were under construction. And the company said there was no problem, since they already incurred expenses and had to dig elsewhere. Who was going to pay for that? We asked them to just accept. They did. But they've been waiting for over 7 months, and the governor can't tell them where to put the streetlights. It has been said that our arena costs more than other arenas in Africa. Is this true? No, it's not true. The figures given to criticize our arena are false. And how much did our arena cost? 104 million US dollars. And what do you think of the agreement in principle that was signed between us, the United States of America, and Rwanda? It's a very good agreement because for several years we've now been suffering from looting, and our brothers and sisters have been killed in the east of the country. It's a very good principle, but the details will depend on the quality of the negotiations. That's why we need to send people with experience and intelligence. I know there is a reason we're facing this situation. And if we've lived through decades of humiliation, there's also a reason. I was financial advisor to the Minister of Finance in 1997 when the AFDL came in. When I came back as the Minister of Finance, I thought maybe God wants to remove the stigma we suffered in 1997. Unfortunately, our army couldn't cope. But at least through diplomacy, we have a chance because we have established institutions. Our president was elected by a majority, and that's a legitimate election. So we negotiate, we end the war, and we continue democracy. And we're told that Corneille Nangaa is in the east. Does this rebellion that Corneille Nangaa have any similarities with the AFDL war? No. What's happening is that the way some of our compatriots are running the country is making our neighbors think we are morons, idiots, and they want to attack us. But this time, they're up against a serious problem. Has the president's diplomacy really borne fruit? Of course, madam. And that's why we have reached this point. But we still need to expand our network of influence. You've asked what concrete achievements I've had. I will also tell you that I'm the first finance minister who has managed to complete a program entirely with IMF. But it seems that IMF doesn't help countries to develop either. We see, for example, Burkina Faso with Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who have cut ties with IMF, but the country continued to survive. No, madam. In fact, they are currently looking for ways and means to renew their ties with IMF. So don't follow what's been said. It's populism. Unfortunately, we are very fond of populism, but the reality is elsewhere. It seems that there is a lot of disorder in the country. It's because of the UDPS. And you are a member of this political party. What do you think? It's true that there is a disorder in the party, but don't worry. You don't have to follow everything that's being said. It's not the UDPS that's the source of problems, because you have to recognize that the UDPS is a great party. In fact, it's the biggest party in the country. What is it about the city of Kinshasa that, despite its resources, tends to manage itself poorly? What's true is that, firstly, the city doesn't have enough money, and secondly, it's light management, nepotism, and the whole system that favors adventurers, people who make sophistries and run things their own way. But in other countries, key positions require well-prepared people. But you get the impression that people at UDPS weren't prepared at all. No, Mom, it's a general problem. It's not a UDPS problem because in the government, it's not just UDPS that's in charge. If someone asks you to rate your own management out of 10, how much can you give yourself? I was with a friend. We were comparing our regime, the Kabila regime, and the Mobutu regime. I said to the person, forgive me, but if you look at the three regimes, I'm not satisfied with the Tshisekedi regime. But it's clear to me that the Tshisekedi regime is the one that has made the most effort to move the country forward. Jean-Marc Aboun says that you are pleasure seekers, that you keep money in tax havens. No, Mum, it's the Congolese who enjoy life because the Congolese love parties and music. That's not bad, but unfortunately, we also have to work. We have to love work. It's inconceivable that we can import corn, that we can import food. The challenges are getting greater and greater, and we have inherited a country that was totally on the ground, in the ditch. But we have made efforts to provide free education, and we remember that when we were small children, education was free. In the Mobutu era, it was something that didn't last, but President Tshisekedi has come to restore that. We just have to be serious. You have to have the means and so on. But when I compare the three regimes, the Tshisekedi regime is the one that has made the most effort to progress, even if that doesn't mean it's the one that has given the most satisfaction. Thank you very much, Papa Kazadi, for your answers. By the way, we've heard that the next governor of the central bank is you. What do you have to say to that? These are rumors. The governor is here for a 5-year term, and the only way to get her out of the office for now is to appoint her elsewhere. But what if they appoint you? Will you accept? I belong to a political party. If my work is needed, I won't refuse. But for the time being, we have to tell it as it is. Thank you very much, Mr. Nicolas Kazadi, for your availability. And thank you for making it possible for us to exchange views, even though you were very critical of journalists. Even though I criticized you, we're together, and that's why we met. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, dear viewers, and see you very soon.